Time is a strange companion. It doesn't walk beside us. It hovers, silent and merciless, like a shadow that never blinks. Most people don't notice it until it's too late, until a clock stops, a face fades, a moment slips through the cracks of memory. I used to think time was linear, obedient, measurable. I was a scientist after all. Equations were my poetry, predictability was my faith. But I was wrong. Time is not a river, it's an ocean. And once you fall into it, you don't swim forward. You drown in every direction. My name doesn't matter much anymore. What matters is that I once built something, something meant to understand time, not defy it. A field resonance prototype, we called it. Harmless on paper, thrilling in theory, the kind of project that keeps you up at 3 a.m., muttering equations into coffee cups and staring at flickering screens that feel more alive than you do. I wasn't searching for power or fame. I wanted to prove something simpler, that memory and reality were connected, that maybe, just maybe, the past wasn't lost but folded, waiting. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because the lab smelled faintly of burnt metal and rain. The system went critical before we could abort. There was a sound like glass shattering underwater. And then nothing. No light. No air. Just a long, silent fall through a color I can't describe. When I woke, the world had changed. The air tasted of ash and wildflowers. The sky was pale and unbroken, the kind you see in oil paintings. And the silence. There was no hum of electricity, no distant engines, no network signals, only wind and somewhere far off, the sound of bells. I thought I was dead. Then I saw them, people, walking in clothes that belonged to no museum, carrying baskets and torches. A banner of smoke rose from the valley, where a village lay curled like a memory untouched by centuries. And among them, I saw her. She stood by a well, hair dark as the soil, her hands cupped around a pitcher. Our eyes met for a second, hers filled with something I hadn't seen in years, wonder untainted by knowing. That was the beginning. What follows is not a theory, nor a dream. It's a confession, a record of what happened when I stepped outside of time and found something worth breaking every law of nature for. If you're hearing this, it means I never made it back, or perhaps I never wanted to. This is my field log, and my love letter to the past. The night it happened, the world felt slightly off, like a melody played half a note out of tune. I was the last one left in the lab. The others had gone home hours ago, leaving the hum of the prototype as my only company. I'd been running simulations for weeks, tweaking parameters, chasing precision like a starving man chasing warmth. The device sat in the center of the room, a ring of copper conduits woven with superconducting cables, pulsing faintly blue beneath layers of condensation. We called it the temporal field resonator, but to me it was something humbler, a bridge between what is and what was. Time travel wasn't the goal, not directly. We were studying temporal interference, how particles behaved when memory was introduced as a variable. But the math kept whispering something else, something impossible, that under the right field intensity, time might not just be observed, it could be touched. I should have shut it down when the reading spiked. Instead, I stared. The sensors were recording fluctuations beyond theoretical limits. The field matrix was folding in on itself, forming what looked like a resonance node, stable for a fraction of a second, then gone. It shouldn't have been possible. And yet there it was, shimmering like heat above asphalt. I stepped closer. Every rational part of me screamed to stop. But curiosity is a slow form of suicide. I reached out just to feel the air, to see if the distortion was real. The moment my fingers crossed the perimeter, the room convulsed. The lights burst in a storm of white. Air pressure dropped so violently my ears ruptured. I remember a flash of ultraviolet, the smell of ozone, the taste of iron. Then, a tearing sound, deep and endless, like the fabric of the universe inhaling. Silence. When I opened my eyes, the world was unrecognizable. The lab was gone. The walls, the cables, the hum, all replaced by cold wind and the cry of crows. I was lying in grass soaked with morning dew. The sky was enormous, ancient, painted in muted golds and grays. The air was crisp, raw, and clean in a way no city air could ever be. I sat up slowly, heart hammering, my lab coat plastered to my skin. The resonator's power cell lay beside me, smoking faintly. Panic came later. At first, I was too stunned to feel anything but awe. I recognized nothing. Not the landscape, not the vegetation, not even the smell. It was as if I'd woken inside a painting that refused to obey physics. I tried my communicator. Dead. GPS, no signal. Compass, spinning wildly. I walked. The ground was soft. Wildflowers brushing against my knees. In the distance, a hill sloped down toward a cluster of low wooden structures. Huts, maybe, with thatched roofs and pale smoke rising lazily from stone chimneys. My mind scrambled for explanations. Had I been thrown into some isolated valley? A remote region untouched by modernization? Then I saw the figures, 3 of them, walking along a dirt path. They wore coarse linen garments tied with rope and carried spears tipped with blackened iron. One looked up, spotted me, and shouted something I couldn't understand. The language was rough, rhythmic, like the wind through reeds. I froze. They approached cautiously, eyes narrowed. The tallest one pointed his spear at me and barked a command. I raised my hands, palms open. "I'm not a threat," I said uselessly. My voice sounded alien in the open air. He stepped closer, circling me like a wolf would a wounded animal. His gaze caught the metallic sheen of the power cell half buried in the grass. He muttered to the others, then jabbed the spear toward it, gesturing sharply. "Don't touch that," I blurted. He did anyway. The cell emitted a faint hiss, a wisp of blue vapor curling upward. He recoiled, shouting, and the others backed away in fear. One crossed himself, or something like it. They whispered furiously, their tones shifting from caution to superstition. I didn't know it then, but that single act, their fear of my machine, was the seed of everything that followed. They tied my hands with a coarse rope and led me toward the settlement. I didn't resist. Survival was a negotiation, and for now, they had the leverage. As we approached, I caught fragments of their speech, repetitions of a word that sounded like "Wyrn," said with both reverence and dread. The village was small, maybe 50 huts arranged in a rough circle around a well. Chickens darted between the paths. Smoke carried the smell of something burning. Herbs, not wood. People gathered as we entered, murmuring. A child cried. Someone threw a stone that missed my shoulder by inches. They dragged me to a wooden post near the well. The tall one shouted for someone, and moments later, she appeared. Her presence silenced the crowd. She was young, though her gaze carried weight older than any of them. Her dress was simple, woven from pale flax. A strand of dark hair escaped her braid, catching the light. In her hands, she held a bowl of water and what looked like crushed leaves. When her eyes met mine, the noise of the world thinned to a heartbeat. She spoke softly, and the tall man lowered his spear. She stepped closer, examining me, not with fear, but curiosity. Her eyes flicked to the strange symbols embroidered on my torn lab coat, then to the burn marks on my hands. "Who are you?" she asked in my language. The world tilted. Her accent was strange, her phrasing archaic, but unmistakable. I stared at her, my throat dry. "How do you—" I began, but she interrupted, whispering, "You shouldn't be here." Her words were not accusation. They were prophecy. In that instant, I understood two things. I was impossibly far from home, and somehow, impossibly, I had been expected. They didn't kill me that day, though I saw the question flicker in their eyes more than once. The woman, the one who spoke my language, spared me. Her name, I would later learn, was Alira. She told the others something that made them loosen their grip, something that held authority. They obeyed her as if her voice carried divine sanction. When she spoke, they listened. She led me to a hut on the edge of the settlement. It smelled of smoke, dried herbs, and soil. Inside, the air shimmered with quiet, like the calm inside a storm. She motioned for me to sit while she untied my wrists. "You shouldn't have come," she said again, her tone not harsh but weighted. "The stars are wrong this year. The people see signs in everything." Her words felt like poetry wrapped in warning. My mind was still trying to catch up. "I didn't come here by choice," I said. "Something went wrong. An experiment." She tilted her head. "Experiment?" The word clearly meant nothing to her. I glanced around the hut, searching for something, anything to anchor myself. A rough wooden table held small clay jars labeled with hand-drawn symbols. Dried plants hung from the beams, their scent earthy and sharp. A faint fire glowed in a stone pit, casting light over her face. "You're a healer," I said. Her lips curved slightly. "I listen to sickness," she replied, "and sometimes it listens back." I tried to smile, but my chest felt tight. "Then maybe you can tell me what's wrong with me," I murmured, "because I think I'm not supposed to be alive right now." She didn't laugh. She studied me, eyes steady, calm in a way that made time itself seem slower. "You came through the sky," she said. "The children saw the light. They thought it was the star of judgment." "I came through something," I said. "A machine. A door that shouldn't exist." At the word door, she stiffened. Her hands folded around a pendant at her neck, a small carved stone, worn smooth by touch. "Then you've broken a law," she whispered. "Not of men, but of time." I didn't answer. The truth was too strange, even for me. My mind was still reeling, trying to categorize everything I saw. The architecture was primitive, but methodical, the speech pattern older than any living dialect I knew. My brain flicked through historical databases, timelines, reconstructions. Nothing matched. The door flap opened, and a young boy entered, breathless. He said something to Alira, quick, panicked. She stood immediately, her calm cracking just slightly. She looked back at me. "Stay here," she ordered and hurried out. I didn't stay. Outside, the sky was bruised with storm clouds. The village gathered near the well. A man lay on the ground, trembling violently, his skin pale and blotched. A fever. The villagers circled him with dread. Someone shouted a prayer. Others held branches coated in ash. Alira knelt beside him, pressing her palm to his forehead. Her face was grave. When she spoke, I caught fragments. "The sickness returns. He drank from the northern stream." My instincts took over. I knelt beside her. "Let me see him." She turned sharply. "No, they'll think you brought this." "Maybe I did," I said, "but maybe I can help." The man's pulse was racing, his breathing ragged. I recognized the signs, some kind of infection, maybe waterborne. His lips were cracked, and his pupils unresponsive. I looked around for clean water, for cloth, anything. The villagers murmured, shifting uneasily. A few crossed themselves in fear. Alira hesitated, then, against her better judgment, handed me a clay bowl. I dipped the cloth, wiped the man's mouth, then gestured for fire. "Boil the water," I said. "Please." They didn't understand. I mimed the action, repeating the motion until Alira caught on. She barked an order, and someone fetched a pot. The smell of smoke thickened as the fire grew. Minutes passed. His breathing steadied, slightly. The fever was far from broken, but it was something. The people watched in tense silence, their faces caught between fear and hope. When I looked up, Elira's gaze met mine again. For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. Later, when the man drifted into sleep, the villagers carried him away. The crowd slowly dispersed, whispering prayers to unseen gods. Elira turned to me. "What did you do?" "Hydration," I said. "Heat, clean water." Her brow furrowed. "You speak of spirits in the water?" "No," I said softly. "I speak of life in it. Tiny ones. Too small to see." She regarded me with an expression I couldn't read, somewhere between wonder and unease. "You speak like the old seers," she murmured, "but they were silenced long ago." That night she let me sleep by the fire in her hut. The storm rolled over the valley, thunder echoing like footsteps of gods I didn't believe in. I lay awake, staring at the flickering shadows on the wall. What terrified me wasn't the danger, or even the unknown. It was the realization that my presence here, my interference, could ripple outward, changing everything. And yet, when I thought of her face lit by firelight, something inside me whispered that perhaps this was not an accident at all. Time had not swallowed me by mistake. It had chosen. And in the heart of that impossible silence, I began to understand that love and destiny might not be enemies, but reflections of the same mystery I had spent my life trying to measure. The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the air washed clean and sharp. Mist curled over the fields beyond the village, where the horizon melted into pale light. I stood outside Alira's hut, trying to make sense of my surroundings. It wasn't just the architecture or the language, it was time itself. Everything here moved slower, heavier, as if the world breathed through thicker air. Elira approached quietly, carrying a basket of herbs and linen. She didn't look surprised to see me awake. "You didn't sleep," she said. "I'm still waiting to wake up," I replied. Her smile was brief, like a candle flicker. "If you wish to leave, the forest will take you by dusk. The elders say the sickness came from the river north of there. They go to burn the fields today." "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "Not until I understand where, when I am." Her expression tightened. "You speak strange." "I come from far away," I said simply. "Farther than you can imagine." She studied me for a long time, as if weighing the truth in my voice. "Then perhaps the gods sent you, or perhaps you are a warning." The word warning hung in the air like a blade. As the day stretched, I followed her to the stream beyond the village. The landscape was lush but untamed, ferns shoulder high, ancient trees coiling with moss, and birds whose calls sounded older than language. The stream itself ran clear but sluggish, with a faint, oily shimmer on its surface. I crouched and dipped my fingers in. The smell of decay was unmistakable. "Don't drink from here," I told her. "The villagers do," she said. "They always have." "That's the problem." She frowned. "How can water that looks so pure bring death?" I hesitated, then tried to explain. "There are things you can't see, tiny living things. They live in water, in soil, even on our hands. Some help us, some kill us. When they enter the body through wounds or drinking, the sickness comes." She looked at me with a strange mixture of disbelief and awe. "You speak of invisible demons." "Invisible, yes," I said, "but not demons. Nature." She was quiet for a long time. "You talk like the ancients in the songs," she said softly. "They too saw what others could not." When we returned, the village was tense. Smoke rose from the far fields. "Controlled burns," Alira said. But people whispered, glancing at me with thinly veiled suspicion. News of the fevered man's improvement had spread. Some called me a healer, others a blight-bringer. That evening, the elders summoned Alira. She didn't want me to come, but I insisted. The meeting was held in a long hall, its roof low, its walls covered in carved symbols, moons, stars, serpents swallowing their tails. The air smelled of resin and fear. An old man, his face seamed with age, sat at the center. "You claim this stranger cured the fever," he said. Elira bowed her head. He knew what to do. "The man lives because of him." The elder's eyes cut to me. "You wear cloth finer than kings. You speak like thunder over still water. What spirit sent you?" "No spirit," I said. "I'm human." The hall rustled with murmurs. The elder raised a hand for silence. "If you are human, where is your home?" I hesitated. "Far from here, beyond your lands, beyond your time." The last word made them stir uneasily. Alira's gaze darted toward me, warning. But I was tired of pretending. "I'm a man of science," I said. I built a machine to study time. It broke. And now I'm here." Blank stares. The elder leaned forward. "You speak madness." "Perhaps," I said, "but madness that can heal your people." A tense pause followed. Then he gestured toward the door. "If what you say is true, the gods will show it. You may stay under her roof until the next moon. If more fall ill, you will answer to the fire." When we stepped outside, Alira exhaled sharply. "You shouldn't have said that," she whispered. "They fear what they don't understand." "I've spent my life being misunderstood," I said. That made her laugh, quietly but real. The sound startled me with its warmth. In the days that followed, I worked alongside her. She brought herbs and water. I improvised filters from clay and charcoal. We boiled every drop before drinking. The sick recovered faster than before. The murmurs of suspicion began to soften, just slightly, into reluctant gratitude. One evening, as the sun bled into the hills, I sat by the well repairing the copper casing of my power cell. Elira approached, curious. "You treat that metal like a wounded child," she said. "It's the only piece of my world that still breathes," I replied. "If I can repair it, maybe I can go home." She sat beside me. "And if you can't?" "I don't know." She looked at the device, then at me. "Perhaps the gods broke it for a reason. Perhaps they sent you because we needed you." "I don't believe in gods," I said gently. "Then what do you believe in?" I thought of equations, theories, particle decay, all the sterile beauty of logic that had once defined my life. But now, sitting beside her, beneath a sky unscarred by satellites, all of that felt small. "I used to believe in time," I said. "Now I'm not sure time believes in me." She smiled, the kind that reached her eyes. "Maybe it does. Maybe it wanted you to see something you had forgotten." I met her gaze, and for the first time since the experiment, the silence between heartbeats didn't feel like loss. It felt like possibility. Later, as darkness settled and torches flickered through the village, I found myself wondering not how to get back, but whether I wanted to. Because somewhere between her laughter and the sound of the river, the past had stopped feeling like history. It felt like home. The first signs came quietly, an unease in the air, like the village was holding its breath. At dawn, the bell at the edge of the settlement began to ring, slow and deliberate. Elira and I hurried from the hut to find a small crowd gathered near the path that led to the northern fields. A man lay sprawled in the mud, his face streaked with ash and fear. His hands shook uncontrollably. "It's spreading," someone whispered. Elira knelt beside him, pressing her palm to his cheek. His skin was clammy, his pulse shallow. She looked up at me, her voice trembling. "He was tending the cattle near the burnt lands. He drank from the same stream." I recognized the symptoms immediately. Dehydration, fever, lesions beginning to form. The waterborne infection, whatever primitive strain existed here, was accelerating. My stomach turned cold. "It's not just the stream anymore," I said. "It's moving through the soil." The crowd began to murmur prayers. Fear moved through them faster than the sickness itself. That afternoon, I walked to the northern boundary with Elira. The burned fields still smoldered. Blackened stalks stood like bones, the air thick with acrid smoke. A few villagers were digging shallow trenches to divert the water, their hands raw from labor. I examined the soil, scooping a handful into my palm. It smelled of decay and minerals, but underneath, a faint, sweet rot. I spoke to Alira quietly. If this is bacterial contamination, burning won't stop it. They're spreading it with every touch. She looked lost, torn between belief and incomprehension. Then what must we do? We need to isolate the water, I said. Boil everything. Clean wounds with ash or salt. Keep the sick apart from the rest. Her brow furrowed. They will not listen to a foreign tongue, not unless the council commands it. Then we have to make them understand. She hesitated, then nodded. Come tonight. I will speak with them again. When darkness fell, the council gathered around the fire pit. The elders sat in a semicircle, faces lit by flame. The air smelled of smoke and distrust. Alira spoke first, her tone urgent. The sickness moves like shadow through the wells and fields. This man, she gestured toward me, knows the ways of unseen life. He can stop it. The elder who had called me mad before leaned forward, his eyes narrow. Stop it with what? His strange metals? His words? With knowledge, I said evenly. You can burn fields, but fire won't purify the streams. The sickness hides where your eyes cannot see. If you keep touching the dead, if you keep drinking that water, you'll lose the whole valley. Gasps. Someone spat into the dirt. He speaks against the rites, a woman hissed. The gods send plagues to test our faith. Fire cleanses. I stepped closer to the flames, my voice steady but shaking inside. If your gods wanted you dead, they wouldn't have sent me. The silence that followed felt like the moment before lightning strikes. Alira's breath caught beside me. The elder rose slowly, his expression unreadable. Then show us, he said at last. Prove your claim. The next day became a trial. Literally. They brought 2 jars of water, one from the southern well, one from the northern stream. I asked for fire, cloth, and salt. As the villagers watched, I boiled the first jar over the flame, let it cool, then had one of the elders drink it. Nothing happened. The second jar I left untouched. Another man volunteered, braver or more stubborn, and drank deeply. Within an hour he began to vomit. His hands trembled. The crowd recoiled. They didn't understand microbes or contamination, but they understood proof. By sunset, the council had ordered all water to be boiled before drinking. The decree spread fast, whispered like salvation. For the first time, they looked at me not as a curse, but as a strange kind of oracle. But salvation carries a price. A week later, men from a neighboring settlement arrived. They had heard rumors of fire, of sickness, of a stranger who conjured life from heat and air. They called me a sorcerer. One of them spat at Alira's feet. You consort with him, he sneered. You've brought this plague. The tension was thick enough to cut. Alira stood firm, her chin lifted. He saved your kin, she said. By trickery, the man growled. By witchcraft. I stepped forward. You think I made this? He pointed at my power cell, which I'd been repairing again, its faint blue glow visible in the dusk. No man's fire burns that color, he said. That's not the flame of gods. It's the light of damnation. Before I could respond, one of them lunged, kicking the device into the dirt. The impact cracked its casing, releasing a hiss of vapor. I reacted instinctively, grabbing it before it could discharge. A pulse of light shot outward, momentarily illuminating the entire square. The villagers fell to their knees, screaming prayers. The intruders fled. When the light faded, the power cell lay cold in my hands, its glow extinguished. My last link to home, dead. That night, Alira found me sitting by the riverbank. They will speak of this for generations, she said softly. Some will call it a miracle. Some, a curse. I stared at the device. The silence between us filled with the weight of everything I had lost. It was my only way back, I whispered. She knelt beside me. Then you are one of us now. I looked at her, really looked. The firelight from the village flickered across her face, casting shadows that made her seem half mortal, half memory. I don't belong here, I said. Perhaps not, she murmured. But neither do I. I read old tongues when others pray. I touch sickness when others flee. Maybe that's why time chose you. To meet someone who already stands apart. Her words sank deep. The river whispered beside us, carrying reflections of stars that existed centuries before my birth. I felt something shift inside me. Not surrender, but recognition. The threat was no longer just the plague. It was belief itself, the stories that kept these people alive, and the truth that might destroy them. And somewhere, beneath it all, love had begun to take root, quiet, stubborn, and impossibly out of time. The fever ebbed with time, but not without cost. Half the northern fields lay barren now, and smoke still lingered over the valley like a ghost that refused to leave. Yet for the first time, the village had survived what should have been an ending. They credited Alira. She deflected the praise toward me, but I could see in her eyes that she understood what it meant to share it, that too much gratitude was as dangerous as too little. Hope can turn to worship in a heartbeat, and worship is only one breath away from fear. The days fell into rhythm. I built crude filters from clay, charcoal, and woven reeds. Alira gathered herbs I couldn't name, but learned to recognize by scent alone. Bitter root for fever, silver leaf for wounds, smoke vine to calm the dying. We worked side by side, sometimes in silence, sometimes in laughter that startled both of us. Once, while grinding herbs by the window slit, she said, "You never speak of your home, the place before the light took you." I hesitated, the pestle froze in mid-turn, because every word about it feels like a lie here. Lie? It was a world of noise, I said. Iron birds in the sky, light trapped inside glass. We carried fire in our pockets and thought ourselves gods. But in truth, we were only children who forgot to listen to the wind. She smiled faintly. Then perhaps the gods grew tired of your noise and sent you here to hear again. Her words lingered, gentle but cutting. One evening I sat outside her hut, watching the horizon fade from gold to blue. The stars appeared earlier here, as if night fell heavier. I traced constellations I half recognized, only to realize some were wrong, missing, unborn. I wasn't just far from home. I was centuries away. Alira joined me carrying a bowl of broth. She handed it to me and sat nearby, legs folded beneath her. "The children no longer fear you," she said softly. "They call you the Sky Healer." I laughed under my breath. "That sounds more like a curse than a name." "Names change with time," she said. "Fear turns to memory. Memory becomes story." We ate in silence for a while. The fire between us cracked softly, its smoke curling toward the stars. She spoke again, her voice quieter. "Do you miss someone there, in your other world?" I thought of my colleagues, my sterile apartment, the glow of screens. None of it felt like someone. But then, an image surfaced, a woman I once almost loved, who left because I cared more for theories than people. "No one waiting," I said finally. "Just ghosts of choices." Alira's eyes caught the firelight. "Then maybe that's why you found me." Something in her tone made my breath falter. I looked at her, truly looked. The curve of her cheek, the strength in her stillness, the way her presence seemed older than the years she carried. For a heartbeat, time folded again, and it was as though the centuries had thinned to nothing. "Maybe," I whispered. Later that week, the sickness returned. But this time, it wasn't from water. It came from fear. A group from the neighboring settlement had fallen ill and blamed us, saying the Sky Healer had angered the spirits by binding fire in his strange metal box. They came at dusk, torches in hand, their chants loud and sharp. The villagers gathered behind the palisade, uncertain whether to fight or flee. Elira stood at the gate, her posture calm but unyielding. "If you bring fire, you'll burn yourself," she told them. A man stepped forward, his face streaked with soot. "We saw your sorcery. You twist nature's will. The sickness spreads wherever your shadow falls." I stepped beside her. "You want to blame someone?" I said. "Fine, blame me. But you'll kill the only person who can stop it." Laughter rippled through their ranks. "Then stop it, sorcerer. Call your light from the sky." I looked at the dead power cell still strapped to my belt. Its blue light had never returned. "It's gone," I said. "Then so should you." One of them hurled a torch. It hit the palisade and burst into flame. The crowd roared. The villagers behind us shouted, running for water. Elira grabbed my arm, dragging me toward the well. "We can't fight them," she said. "They are desperate." Together we hauled bucket after bucket, dousing the flames before they could spread. Smoke clawed at my lungs. Sparks burned through my sleeves. In the chaos, I saw the man who had thrown the first torch. He was coughing, swaying, eyes fever bright. His legs buckled and he collapsed. I pushed through the smoke and caught him. His skin was burning hot. He was sick, too sick to stand. Elira reached me, her voice breaking. They don't see he's one of them." We carried him inside the gate. The others froze, torn between rage and fear. I shouted, "Look at him! This is your enemy! The sickness, not me!" Silence. Then a woman began to cry. We worked through the night to keep him alive. Elira mixed poultices while I cooled his body with soaked cloth. Slowly his breathing steadied. By dawn he was sleeping. The crowd outside was gone. They had left their torches by the road like fallen weapons. When the sun rose, Elira leaned against the wall, exhausted. "You risked your life for the man who tried to burn you." "I didn't do it for him," I said. "I did it for you, for what you believe in." She turned toward me, eyes tired but luminous. "And what do I believe in?" "Mercy," I said, "even when the world doesn't deserve it." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she reached for my hand, hesitant, unsure, and let her fingers rest there, light as breath. "Perhaps," she murmured, "you were sent not to heal the body of this world, but its heart." Her touch was the first human warmth I'd felt since the experiment. And in that small act of trust, something shifted between us, something fragile but undeniable. The fire had burned out, the sickness had retreated, but the air between us was still charged, like the last echo of thunder after a storm that refuses to end. And I knew, as surely as I had ever known any equation, that I would die for her before I ever left her behind. It began with small things, a brush of her hand as she passed me a bowl, the way her laughter softened the air, like light filtering through leaves. Every moment near her seemed to stretch longer, as though time itself paused to listen. I started to forget the language of my own world, the hum of engines, the sterile white of laboratories, the buzz of neon. All of it felt like a dream fading under the weight of something far more real. Life here was built on rhythm, the pulse of rain against wood, the smell of herbs crushed in her palms, the quiet between our words. The villagers had grown used to my presence. Some even greeted me in the mornings with shy smiles. They called me the one who listens to the river. I'd take that over Sky Healer any day. Elira and I spent long hours by the stream, building small clay vessels and testing ways to filter the water. She learned quickly, too quickly. "You think like me," I told her once. She shook her head. "No, you think like us now." One evening, as twilight bled into violet, she brought me a wooden carving, a tiny bird with wings outstretched. "For you," she said, "so you don't forget to fly." "I'm not sure I remember how," I said softly. "Then I'll remind you." Her eyes held mine, steady, searching. That look lingered long after she turned away. The days grew warmer. The valley bloomed again. green returning like forgiveness. But rumors still drifted from the north. A war brewing between rival tribes, soldiers marching under banners marked with suns and serpents. Even here in this quiet place, the world was shifting towards something dark. One afternoon, I found Elira near the well, speaking with the elder. His face was grave. "Scouts from the highlands," he told me. "They ask for aid. The sickness spreads there too." Elira looked at me. "We must go." "You mean I must go?" I said. "They'll think I bring it again." "They'll think what they will, but they will die without help." I wanted to refuse. I wanted to keep her safe, to hold on to the fragile peace we'd built. But she was right. Knowledge meant nothing if it stayed behind walls. We left at dawn. The journey took 3 days. Through forests older than history, across ridges that cut the sky like broken glass. At night, we camped near streams that glowed faintly under the moon, their surfaces shimmering with the same otherworldly hue as the energy that once powered my world. On the second night, she woke to find me staring at the stars. "You never sleep," she said softly. "I'm afraid I'll wake up somewhere else," I admitted. She sat beside me, wrapping her cloak around her shoulders. "Do you still wish to return?" I didn't answer immediately. "If I go back, you vanish. You never existed. The world resets, and I become a ghost who remembers too much." She reached out, fingertips grazing the back of my hand. "Then stay, ghost. Be memory made flesh." The simplicity of her words broke something in me. I turned toward her, and for the first time, I let my guard fall completely. We kissed. It was not desperate or wild. It was quiet, inevitable, like a question finally answered. The warmth of her mouth, the salt of her breath, the tremor that passed through both of us. It all felt like gravity surrendering. When we pulled apart, she whispered, "Now you belong to this time." "Maybe," I said, "or maybe this time belongs to you." The next day, we reached the Highland settlement. The sickness there was worse than anything I'd seen. Dozens lay in tents, their bodies wasted, the stench of rot heavy in the air. Flies clung to everything. The local healer, a man older than stone, watched me with suspicion, but let us work. We cleaned wounds, boiled herbs, burned soiled rags. It was endless, brutal, necessary. Elira never faltered. She moved among the sick with fearless grace, whispering comfort even to those beyond saving. Once I saw a dying child clutch her hand and smile. The strength it took to smile at death, I still can't explain. At night, we slept in a small tent on the outskirts. She lay beside me, exhaustion etched into every breath. "You're saving them," she murmured. "We're saving them," I corrected. "No," she said softly. "You taught us to see the world differently. Even if they curse your name, even if they forget your face, you will live in what we learn." Her words hit me harder than any truth I'd known in the lab. The third morning, a messenger arrived from the valley. News of soldiers approaching, burning villages in their path. Panic rippled through the camp. I told Elira we should return, but she refused. "They'll need someone to speak for them when the army comes. And if they kill you, then they'll remember what I said before dying." "You can't fight faith with reason," I said. "You can only survive it." She smiled sadly. "Then we'll survive together." That night I watched her sleep, her face lit by the faint orange glow of the fire. I tried to memorize every detail, the small scar near her jaw, the curve of her fingers resting near mine. Because some part of me already knew this peace wouldn't last. Time had given me a gift it never meant to give, and time, cruel as ever, would want it back. For the first time since the experiment, I didn't fear the future. I feared tomorrow, because love had made the impossible beautiful, and beauty never stays untouched for long. The soldiers came at dawn. Their banners rose from the mist like fire-colored wings, sunlight glinting off bronze. We saw them first from the ridge above the highland village. An army, small but disciplined, their formation sharp as a blade. They carry the serpent sigil, Alira said quietly, the southern warlord's mark. I'd heard fragments of their legend from villagers, a man who called himself chosen by the sun, purging lands cursed by unnatural fire. My stomach twisted. I didn't need a translation to know who he meant. We ran back to the village, shouting for people to hide. Some gathered what little they could. Others fell to their knees praying. Fear was as contagious as the sickness. When the soldiers arrived, their commander dismounted, a tall figure in burnished armor, his face hidden behind a veil of gold-threaded cloth. His voice was smooth, almost calm. "We've come to cleanse," he said. "The gods have shown us the source of corruption." His gaze found me instantly. Alira stepped forward before I could speak. "He saved us," she said. "The sickness would have taken half the valley without him." The commander's tone hardened. "Blasphemy. He toys with the balance. You think your lives worth the anger of the heavens?" I felt something inside me crack. "I didn't cause your plague," I said. "You did, by fear, by ignorance. You let superstition kill more than disease ever could." Gasps from the villagers. Alira's hand found my sleeve, a silent plea. Enough. But it was already too late. The commander raised his arm. "Seize him!" They moved fast. Spears and ropes, the hiss of chainmail. I fought, but there were too many. Someone struck me across the jaw. The world tilted. When I regained focus, I was on my knees in the mud, wrists bound, blood running from my lip. Alira was shouting at them, her voice ragged. "He is not your enemy." The commander turned to her. "Then you stand with him?" She didn't hesitate. "I do." The pause that followed felt endless. Then he said softly, almost pitying, "Then you stand against heaven." He ordered the huts searched. The soldiers ransacked everything, scattering the medical tools, smashing the jars of herbs, overturning our supplies. When they found my broken power cell among Alira's belongings, they held it up triumphantly, the faint metallic glint catching the light. "This is his sorcery," one cried. "Proof!" The commander nodded. "Burn it." "No!" I lunged forward, but they dragged me back. The fire caught quickly, the dry wood drinking it greedily. As the flames rose, something deeper than rage hollowed through me. That device had been my last piece of home. Now it was just smoke, twisting into a sky that didn't know my name. The commander turned back to me. "You will be taken south, tried for heresy before the Council of the Sun." Alira stepped between us. "If you take him, I go too." His eyes, cold even behind the veil, narrowed. "Then you share his fate." We were bound together, wrists tied and thrown onto a cart. As it rumbled down the valley road, I looked back to see the village shrinking behind us. Smoke curling above rooftops, figures watching in silence. My mind screamed for logic, for control, for some explanation that could make this anything other than madness. But logic was useless here. That night when the soldiers camped, they tied us to a tree under guard. The air was damp, the fire distant. I whispered, "You shouldn't have followed me." Alira's eyes found mine in the dark. "I told you, we survived together." "You don't understand what they'll do," I said. "They'll call it justice." "Then let them." Her voice trembled, but not with fear, with conviction. "If we die for truth, maybe someone will remember." I closed my eyes. "You sound like me before I lost faith in everything." "And now?" she asked. I hesitated. "Now I think faith isn't about gods. It's about someone you'd burn the world to protect." The silence between us was thick enough to drown in. Then quietly she leaned forward until her forehead rested against mine. "Then we have the same faith," she whispered. The next morning a storm rolled in from the east. The air turned electric, the kind of storm that makes animals restless. As the soldiers prepared to move, I noticed something strange. Their compasses, crude but familiar, spinning erratically. The sky darkened, thunder cracking like the earth splitting open. And then, just for a heartbeat, the air shimmered. The same color I'd seen on the day of the experiment, a violent blue pulsing like breath. The soldiers recoiled, shouting. Horses reared. The commander stared upward, his calm breaking. What witchcraft is this? I felt it deep in my bones. A vibration, faint but growing. The field, the resonance. My ruined device must have triggered something when it burned, a release of residual energy. I realized what it meant before I could stop the thought. The gate was reopening. "Alira!" I shouted. I, listen to me. If this storm grows, time will break open again." She stared at me, rain streaming down her face. "Then go," she yelled. "Go back to your world." Lightning split the sky, blinding. "Not without you," I shouted. The ground trembled. The soldiers fled, abandoning the cart, the supplies, everything. Only the commander remained, his voice a snarl lost in the wind. "Demon!" he screamed, drawing his blade. He lunged, but the air between us cracked like glass. The lightning hit. No, not lightning. Something else. A surge of energy exploded outward, flinging him into the dark. And then for a heartbeat, everything stopped. The world hung suspended. Raindrops froze midair. The trees bent inward, as if time itself inhaled. I turned to Alira. She was half lit by the impossible blue glow, her hair wild, her eyes wide. Not afraid, but radiant, almost serene. "It's opening," I whispered. "I can take you with me." Her lips parted. "And what will I be there? A ghost from another century? You can't carry me into your world without erasing mine." I shook my head, desperate. "I can't lose you." She smiled, so small, so devastatingly calm. "Then remember me." The glow brightened. The sound returned. A deep, growing hum, the same note that started everything. My mind screamed with paradox, with equations unraveling. The gate wasn't stable. It was consuming the air itself. I reached for her. Our fingers touched, just once, just long enough to feel the warmth of her skin, before the light swallowed us both. Then came the silence again. But this time, it didn't feel like falling. It felt like being torn in half. When I woke, I was lying on a floor of cold metal. The air smelled of ozone and burnt insulation. My ears rang, and the world swam in fragments. Blinding light, echoing alarms, the taste of iron on my tongue. For a long moment, I thought I was dead. Then the hum returned, the soft, steady rhythm of machines. I opened my eyes to find myself back in the lab. The resonator was a ruin. The copper ring had collapsed inward, fused into a warped sculpture of heat-twisted metal. Sparks hissed along the cables. The clock on the far wall blinked erratically, digits looping between impossible timestamps. I pushed myself up, dizzy, my body screaming with exhaustion. My reflection stared back from a broken monitor, gaunt, blood-streaked, older somehow. And then the realization hit like a knife. I was back. Time hadn't forgotten me. It had spit me out. But Alira? I turned wildly, scanning the lab for any sign of her, of it, of the field, of something. Nothing. Only silence. The storm outside had faded into a gray drizzle, the city skyline blurred by rain. The doorway opened and a voice called my name. Urgent, disbelieving. My colleague, Thomas. "Jesus, where the hell have you been?" I couldn't speak. He ran to me, gripping my shoulders. "You vanished 3 days ago. The entire facility went into lockdown. We thought you were—" He stopped mid-sentence, staring at my torn clothing, the dirt still crusted on my boots. "What happened to you?" 3 days. For me, it had been months. Maybe more. "I need to see the logs," I said hoarsely. He blinked. "Logs? You need a hospital. Now, Thomas." Something in my voice made him obey. We pulled up the data from the resonator, waveforms, timestamps, field fluctuations. The recording stopped abruptly at the moment of the accident, but buried in the static, there it was, a spike of temporal resonance. Then another one, 3 days later, a re-entry point. The gate had opened twice. I zoomed in on the data. Embedded within the noise was something strange, an echo pattern that shouldn't exist. It repeated in intervals, rhythmic, deliberate, almost like a heartbeat. Thomas frowned. What the hell is that? I didn't answer. My chest had gone hollow. Later, alone in my apartment, I played the waveform again and again. The pattern was unmistakable. I had heard it before. In the stillness of the nights by the river, when Alira leaned close enough for me to feel her pulse against my wrist. It was hers. Somehow, impossibly hers. I didn't sleep. My mind tore itself apart, chasing explanations that defied logic. Could part of her have come through? A memory encoded in the field? A biological echo carried across centuries of folded space-time? I began to record everything. My memories, my dreams, the fragments of her voice that sometimes echoed in the back of my mind. The scientists would call it trauma. I called it proof. Weeks passed. The resonator was sealed off, dismantled by order of the board. Too dangerous, they said. I kept a single shard of its copper ring hidden in my desk drawer. Some nights when the lights flickered, I thought I saw faint traces of blue crawling along its edges. I started losing time again. Hours, sometimes whole nights. I'd wake with dirt on my shoes, water under my nails, the smell of smoke on my hands. My colleagues thought I was breaking down. Maybe I was. Then came the dream. It began in silence, then wind, the sound of bells from across a valley. I stood by the river again, the sky a deep and endless gray. She was there, kneeling by the water, her back to me. "Alira," I whispered. She turned. She hadn't aged. The light caught her face exactly as I remembered. "You're late," she said, smiling faintly. "I tried to bring you back," I said. "The field, it pulled me through, but you—" "I know," she said. "Time took what it wanted." I stepped closer. "You died?" She shook her head. "No, I changed. Time does that, but I'm still here." "Where?" "In the spaces you left open," she said softly. "In the air between seconds. In the silence after thunder. You opened a door between worlds, and now it remembers us both." I wanted to reach for her, but the air shimmered unstable. "If the door remembers," I said, "then I can reopen it." Her eyes softened with something like sorrow. "And what will you give this time? Another life? Another future?" "I'll give everything." She smiled, a fragile, infinite sadness. "Then you already have." When I woke, my desk light was still on, but the shard of copper, the one from the resonator, was gone. In its place lay something impossible, a small carved bird, its wooden wings spread wide. Her carving, the one she had given me by the fire. I sat there for hours holding it, shaking, laughing, crying, all of it tangled together. There were no logical answers left, only truth, raw and aching. She was alive somewhere, somewhen, written into the folds of time. The fracture hadn't ended our story. It had preserved it. And I understood finally what the field had become. It wasn't a machine anymore. It was a wound, open, pulsing, waiting for me to step through again. I began rebuilding, not for science, not for discovery, for her, for the echo that wouldn't fade. Because love, I realized, isn't bound to time. It is the one equation that refuses to collapse. And I would solve it, even if it broke the universe twice. The second machine was smaller, built from scraps and memory. I worked in secret, beneath the lab that had once been mine. No government clearance, no colleagues, Just sleepless nights and the echo of her voice guiding my hands. I no longer cared about safety or proof. I wasn't chasing a theory. I was chasing a ghost through the bloodstream of time. Each calibration took me closer to madness. I tuned frequencies by ear, aligned coils by instinct, and measured time distortions not by instruments, but by sensation. By the way the air thickened when I thought of her, by the pulse that beat faster when the field hummed. Sometimes in the hum, I heard whispers, soft, broken fragments that sounded like her name carried through static. Elira. The word became prayer, obsession, fuel. The night I turned the machine on, the city was drowning in rain again. Fitting, I thought. Time loves repetition. The copper ring pulsed to life, faint blue light spilling across the floor. My notes trembled under the air pressure. The resonance graph spiked, and for a moment I saw the same waveform as before, her heartbeat encoded in the chaos. The hum grew deeper, vibrating through my bones. My teeth ached. The glass panels began to warp. I stepped closer, ignoring every warning my body screamed. Alira, I said aloud, if you can hear me, if there's anything left of me there, show me. The light answered. It expanded, swallowing the room in a sphere of shimmering distortion. I reached forward, the air thick as water, and the sound dropped away. For a breathless instant, I felt her hand again. Warm, trembling, familiar. Then everything ruptured. The floor vanished. The light twisted. Gravity lost its meaning. I was falling, tumbling through flashes of color and sound. Cities collapsing in reverse, stars blooming and dying, oceans folding in on themselves. Every possible version of reality collided at once. And through it all, her voice. Remember. When I landed, I wasn't sure I'd survived. The air was heavy, fragrant. My head throbbed. I opened my eyes to the valley. The same river, the same hills, but changed. The trees were younger, the huts gone. Smoke rose from distant fires. I stumbled toward the water, heart hammering. My reflection rippled. A stranger's face, older, scarred, eyes darkened by years that shouldn't exist. Then I heard laughter, children's laughter. I turned. Down the slope, a group of villagers walked toward the river carrying baskets. Their clothes were newer, their faces unfamiliar, and among them, her. She looked the same, not precisely. There were faint lines near her eyes now, her hair braided differently, but it was her, Elira. I called her name before I could stop myself. She froze, eyes widening, the basket slipping from her hands. For a heartbeat, she didn't breathe. Then she whispered, "It can't be." I ran to her, every step burning with disbelief. "Alira," I said, voice breaking. "I came back." She reached out as if to touch my face, then drew back. "You're older," she said quietly. "And the river. The river said you were gone." "I tried," I said. "I rebuilt it. I tore through time." Tears welled in her eyes. "You shouldn't have." "I had to." She looked past me toward the horizon. Soldiers again. Different banners this time, but the same hunger in their march. "The wars never stopped," she whispered. "They always return. The years pass. The faces change. But the fear stays." I wanted to promise her safety, to rebuild the village, to protect her from everything. But then I saw it, the shimmer in the air above the hills. Not natural, a distortion, faint but growing, just like before. The machine hadn't closed the fracture. It had widened it. Time was unraveling. The sky flickered between day and night. The river ran both forward and backward at once. The sound of bells warped into static. The villagers screamed as pieces of the world began to blink, flickering like dying pixels, vanishing, reappearing in wrong places. I grabbed Alira's hand. "We have to move." "Where?" To the source. We ran toward the distortion, the ground beneath us shifting from earth to stone to nothing. The air burned cold, thin, alive. I felt it, time collapsing inward, folding space like paper. In the distance, through the shimmer, I saw flashes of other worlds, neon skylines, deserts of glass, oceans boiling under strange stars. The fracture wasn't a doorway anymore. It was a wound-devouring reality itself. Alira stumbled. I caught her, pulling her close. "Listen to me," I said, shouting over the wind. "If this collapses, everything goes. All of it. Past, present, future." She looked at me, calm amid the chaos. "Then close it." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do," she said softly. "You made it with love. End it the same way." The words hit something primal inside me. I turned toward the distortion, the resonance of the machine echoing in my chest. The hum grew louder, pulling at the metal fragment still tied around my wrist, a remnant of the first resonator. It vibrated, responding to the field. I understood then. The key wasn't force, it was symmetry. Every beginning needed its end. Every wound, a healing cut. I took her hand, pressed the shard between our palms. "When I tell you, run," I said. "No. You have to live, Alira. The world needs you." She shook her head fiercely. "Then it needs you too." Before I could argue, she leaned in and kissed me. Hard, desperate, final. It tasted of salt and smoke and memory. "If time forgets everything," she whispered, "it will still remember this." Then she pushed me back into the heart of the storm. The light exploded. The field swallowed sound, swallowed thought. I felt my body dissolve, my consciousness stretch across centuries like light through glass. The valley vanished. The lab, the stars, the wars, all gone. Only her voice remained, faint as a breath. "Close the door." I did, with every piece of myself. The resonance collapsed inward, folding time like a dying heartbeat. The world snapped back into silence, and for a moment that lasted forever, I was nowhere and everywhere. Then darkness. There is no sound in the dark, only the slow return of breath. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in a field of wheat that swayed without wind. The air glowed faintly gold, as if the sun were trapped beneath the horizon. For a moment I thought I was back in her world, in the valley, but the sky was wrong. Too still, too perfect. The stars didn't move. I sat up. My hands were whole again. No wounds, no burns. Even the scar along my wrist, the mark from the resonator, had faded. My instruments, my coat, the machine, gone. "Is this death?" I whispered aloud. A voice behind me answered, soft and achingly familiar. "No, not yet." I turned. She stood a few paces away, barefoot in the wheat, her hair moving as though the air itself adored her. Alira, or something that wore her shape. I tried to speak, but my voice broke. "Where? Where are we?" "Between," she said simply. "The space your kind calls nothing. The pause between heartbeats, between cause and consequence. You shouldn't be here." She smiled, the same half-smile she had when teasing me by the river. "Neither should you." I took a step closer. The ground rippled beneath my feet, as though the field were made of memory instead of soil. "I closed the door," I said. "I felt it collapse." "You did," she replied. "The wound is sealed. The worlds are safe." "Then why am I here?" "Because you were the one who opened it," she said, "and the door remembers its maker." I wanted to laugh, to cry, to hold her and curse every law of physics that kept us apart. "If this is the space between, then we're not alive." Her gaze softened. "Not in the way you understand, but not lost either. Time is still deciding what to do with you." I sank to my knees, staring at the horizon that never moved. I don't want to forget you. She knelt beside me. Then don't. But if time pulls me back, if it rewrites me, memory isn't bound to the body, she said. It's a form of energy. And energy, you once told me, never dies. I laughed bitterly. I said that before I understood what loss meant. Alira reached out, her fingers tracing the air near my face, though I couldn't feel her touch. You gave your world a second chance, she said. You gave mine one too. The rivers run clean now. The sickness is gone. The stories still remember you. The man who came from the sky and burned himself into legend. Then you lived, I whispered. You survived. She nodded. For a time, then time moved on, as it always does. The valley became ruins. The river changed its course. But they kept my carving. I looked up sharply. The bird. Yes, she said. It became a symbol for the ones who heal. They said the sky healer gave it to the first of their kind, that it was a promise to listen to the living world. A sob tore through my throat before I could stop it. Then you did become the legend. She tilted her head, smiling gently. No, we did. The field shimmered. Her outline flickered, faint and transparent. Time is calling you back, she said. You can't stay. Where will I go? To the moment after, she said. To the world you saved. It's waiting. I shook my head violently. No, not without you. You'll carry me, she said. You already do. The light around her brightened until I had to shield my eyes. Her voice drifted through it, soft and steady. Remember what you told me. The equation that refuses to collapse. Let it guide you. Then she was gone. I fell forward into the light. When I woke again, I was in a hospital bed. Machines beeped softly at my side. A nurse startled when she saw me awake, then ran to call someone. I stared at the ceiling, white and blinding. Thomas entered a few minutes later, disbelief written across his face. You're alive, he said. My voice felt strange, foreign. How long? 6 months, he said. You were found unconscious in the ruins of the lab. Radiation off the charts. The project's been shut down for good. I tried to sit up, but the effort made my head spin. The others? Safe. You're the only one who vanished. He hesitated. You said something before collapsing. Something about closing a door. I smiled faintly. Good. Then it's closed. He frowned. What do you mean? But I was no longer listening. On the bedside table lay something small, impossible, a wooden carving of a bird with wings outstretched. No one could explain how it got there. When they discharged me, I left the city. I bought a small house near a quiet river. Not hers, but it carried the same sound. I spent my days teaching again, this time to children, not machines. I told them about the invisible world, the tiny lives in every drop of water, the balance that keeps us breathing. At night, I would sit by the window, the carving in my hand, and watch the stars shift slowly overhead. And sometimes, just before sleep, I would hear her voice again. Not as a ghost, but as memory, constant and alive. Listen to the world, she would whisper. It remembers everything. Years passed. My hair turned silver, my hands slower, my voice quieter. But the dream remained. The field of wheat, the endless horizon, her smile. I never rebuilt the machine. Not because I couldn't, but because I understood now that love doesn't belong to any one time. It threads through centuries, through hearts, through stories whispered around fires, long after the world forgets our names. The past is not gone, it's listening. And when my own time finally begins to unravel, when breath gives way to silence again, I know what I'll see waiting beyond it. A valley washed in gold, a river that runs both ways, and her, barefoot in the wheat, smiling, her hand outstretched. Not a dream, not a ghost, just time, keeping its promise.